Today's paper is Chequawinal, Resource-Aware Robust Manipulation via Taming Distributional Inconsistencies.
That's Chi0 by Checheng Yu and the team at Kinetics AI.
And the headline here is just massive efficiency. I mean, while everyone else is screaming scale is all you need, this team used just 20 hours of data.
And only 8 A100 GPUs.
To outperform the state-of-the-art Pi Z5 baseline by nearly 250%.
And they did it by finding this hidden devil in robotics.
Distributional shifts.
Exactly. The shifts between training data, model bias, and what actually happens in the real world. So their framework, Chi0, is built on 3 pillars.
Model arithmetic.
Stage advantage using VLMs.
And train deploy alignment to, bridge that reality gap.
Yeah. And the result is, frankly, incredible.
A robot that folded and hung clothes for 24 hours straight.
With 0 human help.
So if you're trying to figure out how to break the data scaling bottleneck.
This is the paper. It's a masterclass in alignment over scale.
Welcome to the AI Paper Podcast. That was the short version, but we are going to tear this thing apart because the details are, well, that's where the magic is.
Absolutely.
Let's start with the core philosophy. They are really taking a shot at the scale is all you need crowd here.
Oh, they really are. I mean, the whole paradigm in manipulation right now is just brute force.
Right.
Your robot fails, get more data, buy more H100s, train a bigger model.
But the Chi0 authors are saying that you just hit a wall of diminishing returns.
Exactly, because of what they call distributional inconsistencies.
Which is a very academic way of saying your model is learning all the wrong things from the right data.
Pretty much. They formalize it by breaking the whole process down into 3 different probability distributions. You've got Tamal plane, Q-model, and demoset.
And the problem isn't any single one of them.
No, it's the mismatch between them.
Okay, let's define these. PEM and trained is your data set, your demos.
Right. PEM and ALI is the data from human experts, usually teleoperated. But the key issue, and they point this out really well, is that this data is inherently sparse.
What do you mean by sparse?
Well, humans are efficient. When we show a robot how to fold a shirt, we show it the perfect way, the happy path.
You don't show it the 100 ways you could mess up.
Exactly. We rarely show it what to do if the shirt is crumpled weirdly or, if we drop it halfway through.
So the data set is fundamentally biased toward perfection.
Which leads right into the second distribution, Q-model. This is the policy the network actually learns.
And since it's only seen that perfect data,
it develops a really strong inductive bias. It basically overfits to the happy path. It learns this incredibly narrow manifold of what correct behavior looks like.
And then you deploy it into the real world.
And then TOS is just chaos. It's the Wild West. You've got sensor noise, different lighting, friction, and the big one, latency.
So the robot is guaranteed to drift off that narrow path it learned.
Instantly. And because Q-model never saw that kind of drift in train, it has absolutely no idea how to recover. It just fails.
Catastrophically.
That's the term they use. It's this hidden devil. A tiny 1 millimeter slip leads to a complete task failure because the model just assumes a perfect world.
So Chi0 isn't about getting more data to cover every possible failure. It's about aligning these distributions so the robot can handle imperfection.
Precisely. Which brings us to the first of their 3 pillars, model arithmetic.
This is a really clever take on model soups.
It is, but with a critical twist. So the standard way is you train one huge model on all your data. Chi0 says, no, let's split the data set up.
Into subsets.
Yeah, exactly. They split the training data and train separate, smaller policies on each subset. So maybe one model sees more red shirts, another sees more blue shirts, or different starting positions. Each one converges to a different local region of the solution space.
And then they just average them.
They average the weights. It's literally just arithmetic. The merged model theta is the weighted sum of the individual model thetas.
Okay, but hang on. We know that just averaging weights can lead to garbage if the models aren't in the same loss basin.
Right, correct. And they handle that. They're all initialized from the same pre-trained points, so they have this linear mode connectivity property. But the real genius here isn't the merging itself, it's the weighting. How do you decide the weights for model A versus model B?
You normally use a validation set. See which model performs best on some held out data.
And that's the trap. That's exactly what they say you shouldn't do.
Why not?
Because if you validate on in-domain data that looks just like your training set, you're just reinforcing the original bias. You're rewarding the models that are best at the happy path.
You're optimizing for the test, not for reality.
Yes. So what Chi0 does is they use out-of-distribution data for validation. specifically recovery trajectories.
So this is where the DAgger data comes in.
Yes, we'll get into the specifics of their DAgger approach later, but for now, the key is they have this small data set of the robot failing and then recovering.
And they use that to pick the weights.
They use that data set to calculate the weights. The question becomes, which of these subset models is best at predicting the correct recovery action when things are already going wrong?
That is so smart. It's inverse loss weighting, but you're inverting based on failure modes.
It completely changes the optimization objective. It forces the final merged model to prioritize robustness. A model that's great at folding but useless at recovery gets a low weight. A model that's just okay at folding but brilliant at fixing mistakes gets a high weight.
So the final soup is mathematically biased towards handling the reality gap.
It pulls Q model closer to the messy reality of testis. It just broadens that solution manifold.
Okay, let's move on to pillar 2. Stage advantage. This is tackling a totally different problem, which is the long horizon nature of these tasks.
Right. Folding a shirt isn't one action. It's a sequence of, 50, 100 small actions?
And in RL, that's the classic credit assignment problem. If you fail at step 50, was it the action at step 49 that was bad? Or slightly off grasp way back at step 5?
The signal-to-noise ratio is just awful.
It is.
And the paper really critiques the baseline here. Ty Baller's 6-stacks, which uses a pretty generic advantage estimator. The variance is just too high, and the robot ends up flailing around because it can't tell if it's actually making progress.
So Chi-Zero's solution involves decomposition and a VLM, a vision language model.
Yes, a VLM. First, they break the task down into semantic stages, things like flattening, folding, hanging. That helps shorten the horizon.
Right.
But the VLM estimator is the really cool part. They use it to generate a dense reward signal during training.
How does that work in practice? Is the VLM actually running into the loop during deployment?
No, that'd be way too slow. It's a training time thing. The estimator takes two states, state Cillars, and a future state Cal, and it just predicts the probability that Ciller is closer to the goal than Cecil.
So it's like a pairwise ranking.
That's a great way to put it. It's basically asking the VLM, does the shirt in image B look more folded than the shirt in image A?
And that gives the policy this smooth, dense gradient to follow?
Exactly. Instead of just this one sparse success flag at the very end, it gets this constant feedback. Warmer, colder.
Which would have to stabilize the value function learning immensely.
Hugely. And because it's a VLM, it generalizes so much better. It has a semantic understanding of foldedness, not just matching pixels.
Okay, that brings us to the third pillar, train deploy alignment. This feels like the most nuts and bolts engineering part of the paper.
It is. This is all about the physical execution.
They start with something called Heuristic DAgger.
Right. So standard DAgger dataset aggregation is kind of the gold standard for fixing this distribution shift problem. You run the policy, wait for it to drift into a failure state.
And then a human expert grabs a joystick and shows it how to recover.
Yep. And you add that correction to your dataset. The problem is it's incredibly inefficient.
Painfully slow.
I mean, if your policy is already 90% successful, you spend 90% of your time just watching it work. You're not collecting useful data.
So what makes their DAgger heuristic?
It's basically active adversarial training. They don't wait for the robot to fail.
They force it to fail.
They sabotage their own robot.
I love it.
They do. They'll manually place the object in a hard negative state. They'll hang the sheet halfway off the table or rotate the hanger so the hook is blocked.
And then they immediately record the human-led recovery from that specific bad state.
Exactly. They front load all the failure experience. They just flood with recovery data from the absolute edges of the distribution.
So when the robot does end up in a weird spot in the real world, during tests, it's not a surprise. It's seen that chaos before.
It's seen that specific type of chaos before.
Now they pair this with something called temporal chunk-wise smoothing. This is for the latency problem, isn't it?
Yes. And this is a super subtle but important point that trips up a lot of real-world robot systems.
Your transformer policy isn't instantaneous.
Not at all. It might take 50, maybe 100 milliseconds to process an image and spit out a plan.
And by the time that plan is ready, the world has changed. The robot arm has moved.
Exactly right. The state dollar that you use to generate the plan is already stale. So if you just execute the new plan from scratch, you get this jerky, bang-bang control. The robot is constantly overcorrecting for its own lag.
So what does the smoothing algorithm do?
So instead of outputting one action at a time, the model outputs a whole chunk of future actions, like the next 10 steps. Chi-Zero keeps a buffer. When a new chunk comes in, it doesn't just throw out the old plan.
It blends them.
It blends them. It uses a weighting function to smoothly merge the new chunk with the remaining actions from the previous cycle.
Kind of like an exponential moving average, but for entire trajectories.
That's a perfect analogy. It ensures the motor commands are smooth, even if the inference time jitters a bit, and they found this massively reduced what they call the retry cost.
Let's talk about those results, the laundry test. Why garments? Why not something simple like picking up boxes?
Because rigid objects are easy. A box has 6 degrees of freedom. A t-shirt has, well, practically infinite degrees of freedom. It's deformable.
It occludes itself. It changes shape when you touch it.
It is the ultimate stress test for distributional consistency. If your model has blind spots, a piece of cloth will find them.
And the tasks were genuinely hard. Flattening, sorting shirts.
And task C, hanging a chute on a rack.
That sounds like a nightmare.
Oh, it is. You're fighting gravity the whole time. You have to thread this tiny hook through a floppy collar. The precision you need is just immense.
And the numbers they got were just staggering. A 250% jump over the PA5 baseline is already wild.
But the stat that really got me was the 24-hour autonomous run.
Yeah, that's not a normal academic result. You usually see, 50 trials, which takes an hour.
Right. Running a robot for a full day continuously from random starting positions with no human pressing the e-stop, that shows a level of robustness that you almost never see in a research paper.
It means the system is fundamentally stable. It doesn't diverge over time.
And it means the recovery policies really, truly work. Over 24 hours, the robot is going to drop the shirt. It's going to miss the hanger. The fact that it just kept going means it recovered from those failures every single time.
There was this fascinating little insight in the data about retry cost. They said Chi-0 sometimes had higher retry cost, but also a much higher success rate.
Yes. This is so important for engineers to get. We're often obsessed with first shot success.
Right, do it perfectly the first time.
But Chi-0 learned persistence. Because it was trained on all that heuristic DAgger data, it learned that missing a grasp isn't a terminal failure state.
It's just another state transition.
It's just another state. So it tries again and again. It might take 2 or 3 tries to snag the collar so the cost looks higher, but the final task success is 100%. The baseline model misses once, panics because it's out of distribution, and just freezes.
Low cost, zero success.
It's the difference between being efficient and being effective. Or maybe you could call it robotic grit.
I like that grit. That's what the distribution alignment gave it.
I think so.
I just want to circle back to the resources for a second. 20 hours of data and 8 A100s. Foundation models are being trained on thousands of GPUs for weeks or months.
And that's the resource-aware part of the paper's title. Kinetics AI is making a really strong argument here. You don't need Google-scale compute to solve hard manipulation. You need better math and smarter data curation.
It really challenges the idea of a compute mode. If you can get state-of-the-art results with 8 GPUs, that opens up this kind of research to universities, to startups.
It shifts the competition away from who has the biggest checkbook to who understands their data the best.
So let's push this a bit. That first pillar, model arithmetic. They merged policies trained on subsets of the same task.
Right.
But the math doesn't care what the task is, does it?
No, not really. And that's the wild sci-fi implication, isn't it? If this technique really holds up, could you train one expert policy on chopping vegetables and another on stirring a pot and then just average their weights to create a chef agent?
Without ever training it on a full cooking data set.
Potentially. It suggests a future where we build these complex agents by composing the weights of specialized models, not just by routing tokens inside one giant transformer.
Like a modular library of robot brains.
Exactly. Download a skill. It's a much more scalable path to general-purpose robots than trying to train one single God model on everything all at once.
Okay, so to wrap it all up, Chi-0 is a framework that basically says the reality gap is the main enemy.
Right, and it fights it with model arithmetic to broaden the model's comfort zone.
VLM-based advantages to guide it through long tasks.
And heuristic DAgger to explicitly teach it how to recover from failure.
And what you get is a system that values robustness over raw first-try efficiency.
Yeah.
It prioritizes recovery over perfection.
Which, when you think about it, is a pretty good philosophy for more than just robotics.
It really is. The paper forces you to ask, are we just feeding our models these empty calories of massive, easy data?
Or are we giving them the nutritious, difficult recovery data they actually need to survive in the real world?
And I think Chi-0 proves that a balanced diet wins.
Absolutely.
Thanks for tuning in to this breakdown of Chi-0. If you want to dive deeper, the paper is on argwarv, We'll see you on the next deep dive.